Welcome to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. This is our weekly venture into the world of small to medium-sized businesses and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives success.
So our goal here is to help you grow and to be the best you can be, both in business and personally. To do that, we identify and we discuss topics that will hopefully help you as you work to build a successful business.
We also interview business owners and executives. It's our hope that you may be able to gain insight on ways to help you be a better leader and provide a better culture for your people.
Our mission here is to help you pull the chute once a week to work on your business instead of always working in your business.
So we hope you find these discussions insightful, helpful, and useful.
And thanks for your support. We hope you enjoy today's podcast.
Well, welcome everyone to the Pull the Chute podcast with Jeff and Jana. We are so excited that you are here today. Jana, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm real good. It's a little chilly because we're in January. We tend to record these earlier, but we're good.
Good.
3 days
Awesome.
into the new year. Woohoo!
Yeah. Hey, so we have a guest, you and I are cold up in Chicago and in Nashville, but we have a guest that's down in Boca Raton, Florida.
Yeah,
Eric,
jealous.
Yeah. Cogorno. Am I saying that right, Eric? Cogorno?
Yeah, it's Cogorno, like a
Cogorno, sorry. I meant to ask you that before we
Cogorno.
jumped on. I totally forgot we were talking. Cogorno, thank you. So Eric, welcome to the show. It's kind of funny. We've been trying to get this podcast together since September of last year, and one thing after another kind of hit, but we're glad, Eric, that you hung in there with us, and we'd love to have you on the show. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, good things take time, right? I'm glad to join you guys at the start of the new year. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
So Eric, as always, we like to ask our guests to give a brief background about who they are and how they got to where they're at today. And we do that simply because you do it way better than we do. So please let our listeners know who you are and how you got to where you're at today.
Yeah, appreciate it. So I just had my 36th birthday. I've been teaching golf since I was 20.
Wow.
So year 16 of being a golf coach, giving golf lessons. And, the short version is I grew up in Pennsylvania, small town Pennsylvania kid, and fell in love with sports at a young age. Happened to start golfing because my dad and his friends started golfing on the weekends and just wanted to, hang out with my dad and his buddies and took up golf, got really obsessed with it, played a little bit in college, quickly found out I was not going to go play on TV. I was nowhere to play on the floor. And so I needed to make money, just needed a way to make money. And that's how I got into coaching. I always joke, like, I wish I had this cool, I really wanted to help people and this, that, but I just needed to eat, and pay some bills. And that's the reality, the real answer of how I got into golf coaching. And, I did the in-person coaching. I spent my first, maybe 7 to 10 years trying to get really great at my craft. I was obsessed with coaching and golf swing and people and how to communicate and all that. And in 2016, I built up a nice little in-person coaching business, but was feeling really burnt out. I was like in my mid to late 20s. I'm thinking, gosh, I'm burnt out already. Like, I'm not going
Right.
to keep doing this. And so we decided to go online, and we launched a YouTube channel January 1, 2017. And we just finished our 8th year on YouTube. And that's sort of what we've been doing, Jeff, now is like the online golf coaching has been our main shtick.
That's awesome.
And so it's been a really fun ride. I mean, along that journey, how I got started with the golf coaching, I was introduced to a guy named Jim Rohn. I don't know if you guys have listened to his stuff before or not, but he's big in the personal development world. He was the mentor to Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
And from him, I started getting really into personal development. And he was the one who introduced me to creating my dream life. And that's what led to doing all the online stuff. And so we're sort of pivoting now into getting more into personal development and helping people grow their businesses and such into 2025.
That's fabulous. So now, do you have a certain business model or a certain kind of a roadmap that you give people, Eric, that is based on golf? I mean, it'd be kind of cool. It's kind of based on golf principles, right? And
yeah.
How's your roadmap for actual personal development? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. To be honest, it's a work in progress. It's
Okay.
newer.
Yeah.
It's newer for us. Kind of how my arc has went. I'm going to answer this a long way, and then I'll come back to that. In those first couple of years, maybe the first 5 to 10, I tried to get really great at golf. Like playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
That took me 5 or 10 years, and then I was really obsessed with it. And then I got into coaching, and it sort of was like a 5 or 10 year get great at coaching. And now I'm in this same 5 or 10 year arc of trying to build, I built a decent online business and social media accounts. It's kind of funny. Everything for me is going in that 5 or 10 year arc. And now I feel like I'm at sort of year 1, year 2 of a new 5 to 10 year arc of this next phase. And to answer your question more specifically, the thing that really changed my life, like when I listened to Jim Rohn, when I was 27 and I was feeling burnt out, my buddy sent me this video. I'll never forget. We were like going out on a Friday night. I was in the bathroom doing my hair, and I got a little text like on my phone, and I clicked it. And it was a Tony Robbins video.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen him before, and the video was fine. It didn't do anything for me in the moment, whatever. But right next to it, there was a recommended video from Jim Rohn. And it was a 2-hour video called The Day, I believe it's The Day You Turn Your Life Around. And you know how like just certain people, they speak and just like everything, just like everything he said just like hit me like in the heart. He just spoke so beautifully and it was so simple. And that next weekend, I did a goal setting workshop. It's called Jim Rohn Goal Setting Workshop, like a 3-part video. And it was the first time in my life at age 27 that I had really like let my mind expand beyond like what was my current reality. It was the first, I kind of set little goals, but like I didn't really know how to do goal setting. I'd been to school, I'd been to college, never came up. And that so changed my life that became sort of the anchor of how I help other people now, to answer your question a long way.
Yeah, that's all right.
It just, for me, there was such a clear, like pre-learning goals and dream life vision and post doing it. And just totally different from there. And I found for me, like once I wrote down, the exercise is sort of you write down what you would imagine your dream life to be in 3, 5, 10 years. And then you start with that. And I found that once I got clear on the vision stuff first, that led me to the goals or the actions or the things I needed to do after. And it continues to pull me in that direction. And so when I didn't have clear like vision and clarity, I'm just sort of busy work, just kind of one foot in front of the other a little bit. And I was kind of doing work, but not really getting great results. And so the dream life vision just changed my life so much that that's where you can tell, I think, by me talking about how excited I get about that specific part. And so I think that's the anchor of the program of how I'm trying to help other people, getting clear on where you want to go, and then, chunking that down into some measurable and actionable goals. And then what are the actual tactics to accomplish those goals along the way? So work in progress, long answer to your question, but that's where we're at with it.
No, I think that's great. I think it's a good transition because golf, let's face it, we all know golf is a long-term sport. It's not a sport that you pick up and you master in a year. It's the kind of thing that everybody's frustrated about. They all want to get better. Even the greatest want to continue to get better. So it is definitely coaching. Jeff and I have been coaches for a long time, so we can totally relate to this and say, yeah, that is a good model to have, where you have your vision first, then you have a plan, and then you got to activate that plan in very, specific goals and things. So yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. And just to touch on that too, I think, for the golf coaching, how it relates to it as well. Like when someone comes in and they want us to help, consult with their golfing, I'm sure we go through a similar process. It's like, okay, hey, what do you want to accomplish here? Like, let's get clear on where you want to go. Diagnose what's going on. What are the main things that are holding you back? Here's the action plan to solve those and get where we're going to go. And then it can be, the boring work of like, let's continue to keep the discipline and focus to stay on that, not get distracted by these shiny objects. Many golfers who come in and we post 30 Instagram videos, 30 TikToks, and like 20 YouTube videos a month. So I'm guilty of this.
Yeah.
But there's so many videos, right?
Yes.
Where people will come in to see me and I'm like, what are you thinking about? Like, what are you working on in your swing? And they'll tell me like 14 things. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We maybe can do 1 or 2 things, maybe 1 or 2. And so for a lot of them, it's like clarity of where we want to go, correctly diagnosing the issue. The action plan is usually the easy part. The difficult part for us with the golfers and people I see is, the discipline to do the boring stuff for a long enough time and not get distracted by the shiny things. It's, to your point, it's funny, like a lot of those things coaching golf parallel to coaching people in business.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's all, it's all discipline. Yeah. It's all baby steps and muscle memory and discipline and communication. And, Yeah, and then there's a lot of other aspects that Jeff and I are real strong about, which is, leadership is new. The new leadership landscape is not what it used to be. It's not about being bossy and
Mm.
knowing it all. It's about understanding, what butts go in what seats and how to maneuver your people correctly. It's communication, it's trust, which is the biggest thing we talk about. And then it's understanding that there are so many different generations now and even nationalities in the business world and in our world in this country, so it's interesting that, so there are parallels. There's definitely
Yeah.
parallels.
So let's jump in a little bit because I really like this whole get clear on the vision. So how do you walk people through this? And I know it's a work in progress, but you've gone through it yourself. So what's the process to get it? Because I'm thinking about it in my head. I'm like, I got like 20 visions is the problem, right?
Exactly.
So how do you narrow that down and say, okay, this is the first vision, or this is how we get about it? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that. Love this topic, Jeff. Appreciate you bringing that up. So the way Jim Rohn did it in the goal setting workshop that I did that worked really well was he said, first things first, let's pull out a piece of paper. So I had the legal pad, similar I'm showing here on the video,
Mhm.
and he gave you a period of time. Let's call it 5 or 10 minutes. And without thinking about the logistics, just let your brain sort of run free. And what are the things that you would want in an ideal dream life? So fast forward 5, 10, 15, 20 years. What are the things that you would want if there were no rules? No rules. And so I started writing down on this list here. I had never done this before, but I'm like, okay, hey, I want a beach house. At that point, I wanted a beach house in Ocean City, Maryland. I want a house in Florida by the beach. I want a Range Rover. I want a country club membership. I want this, blah, 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 blah. And so I wrote down, the goal was to write down like 50 things, he said, about 50 things down. So I'm like, okay, I did that. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this right or not. I'm just kind of randomly writing stuff down. The second part of the exercise, he said, now let's go back over that list of 50 and write down next to them how long you think it might take you to get them. Either a 1, 3, 5, or 10 plus, indicating the amount of years it might take you to get. So I'm going through my list, 1, 3, 5, 10. You say, okay, add up the 1s, the 3s, the 5s, the 10s. And there's kind of roughly, what are the things you want in 1, 3, 5, 10 year goals. That okay, that's kind of good. I like that. And then he said, next to the 1s in particular, identify the top 4 that would be like the biggest needle movers or the most important. So, okay, I go through my 1s, like, okay, this would be pretty good. Oh, if I got this, I'd kind of take care of this, this, and this. And trying to identify what the, the biggies are. So that was the big part of just like creating the vision. Now I found with doing it, I had to do it that once and then again and again. I find people I work with, they need to do it at least once a week for 4 to 6 weeks. So once per week for 4 to 6 weeks, I tell them to block out 20 minutes, set a timer on their phone and start doing this. Because what I found, and Jim said this, I found to be true, in week 1, you don't really know what you're doing, you're just writing it down. But after week 2, week 3, week 5, certain things on the list you don't continue writing down. Certain things on the list stay on the list, right? And usually by 4 to 6 weeks, the things that you have written down every week that stayed on there are typically the ones that's sort of how you find out what's actually important to you, and these obviously adapt over time. So that was the first part of the exercise. And then he said next to it, to write down and think about for a period of time why those things are important to you. And there's things on there that I have that like, there's not a lot of significance of that. No, it'd be cool to have, but there's some things on there that there's like deep significance to, right? That I can like even emotionally really get attached to. And I found those ones that there's a really deep emotional attachment for me are the ones that I end up following through and doing the work required to get them. So what do you want? Part 1, part 2 is the why of it. Now, I did that exercise probably once a week for like a month until I got a pretty clear list. I've done for 8 years now. I do that about once a week. Every Sunday for 30 minutes, I do like a think time where I do a version of that exercise. So I've been doing that once a week, every week for 8 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
And the list, thank you. Yeah, the list, just because it works so good, it's like exciting to me that I can create some of the stuff I think about. And obviously the lists have changed over time. But I've found when I write things down, my like success rate is probably 90% plus. I don't always get it when I think or, how I think you're going to, as you guys know, you kind of never know how you're going to get there. But it's been amazing what I've been able to bring to reality. And last little point on this, Jeff, is I got introduced to Vishen Lakhiani He did Mind Valley. He had a video called 6 Phase Meditation that I started when I learned how to meditate, and he introduced me to visualization. And then, obviously there's more people who do that now, but so I spend like 10 to 15 minutes daily visualizing what it would feel like to have those things that are on my list. And I think if you can back it up with that, I think if you can make the list, because some people, like what I did in the beginning, sometimes is like you make a list and then you don't look at it again until next year. And like, sometimes you get the thing, sometimes you don't. But gosh, when I've made the list and then like I spend time daily thinking about it, it just sort of like 10x's it. I lied to you, Jeff. I've got two other quickies on that. One thing that helped me a lot, when I first wrote down the list, I got way too tied up in what I thought was possible given my current reality. Like given me, Eric, at 27, the skills I have or don't have, the resources, the networks, that really held me back. Like thinking about the logistics. I'm like, oh, hey, I want a $7 million beach house in Delray Beach, Florida. I'm like, how the freak am I gonna? I got less than $1,000 in my name. That ain't possible. So that really held me back for a long time. But once I finally learned, and I have no hack to it. It just took me some time to like remove logistics. Not what I think going to be possible right now, but like who knows how good I'm going to be in 5 or 10 years? Who knows who I'm going to know? Who knows what resource I'm going to have? So that was a big one, to be able to get past my current reality. And then when doing the visualization for like the 10 to 15 minutes, in the beginning, when I just kind of thought about the things, it helped somewhat. But when I got really in tune with, like, I heard one of the guys say, visualize and feel it as though it already happened, as though you're there in that future spot and it's happening, like really deep into it. Like I got a Range Rover this year that I've been visualizing for 7 years. I would sit and like feel the leather, like in the car, like feel me in the steering wheel. Like I live by the beach down in Florida, and I used to think about me being on the beach and like feel the sand and the wind, like really deeply connect to it. And so I'm obviously very passionate about it because it took me from what I was before there was stuck, frustrated, burnt out, into like where I am now living, what my current dream life is. And I just think everyone can do, various parts of that. So hopefully that stuff's helpful.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So we spent a lot of time visualizing, but now we've got to set some goals on how to get there.
Right.
So how do you go about that? What's the next step, right? Because we can visualize all we want, but once we decide where we want to go, how do we get there?
The process.
Yeah. So like, let's assume the person did the continual daily visualization that pulls you through the hard times. Let's assume that we're doing that, because a lot of people skip that step. So I would take those things, like I just did my 2024 and 2025 goals, right? So I've got a list of, based on that dream life, vision that I want in the future, I've got a full list of 2025 goals, right?
Okay.
So what I do is I take those big vision things and then I turn the vision into measurable and actionable goals. So if I'm like, hey, I want, I want a beach house in Florida, I would have to define those things. So I get really clear on what that means. Or a business goal. Hey, I want to create more revenue. I want to do 10 million in revenue. So what's measurable? By what date do I want to be able to do it? So I would take the kind of blurry vision and get it into really clear, focused goals that I can pinpoint. And let's just say they're 10 years away, or 5 or 3. And then I would chunk those bigger goals into shorter goals. So let's just use a money one to make it super simple. Let's say I've got a 5-year goal to save $5 million. So just make it real simple. That means I got to save $1 million per year over the next 5 years to get to 5 million. I would then break that yearly goal down into monthly goals, right? So I've got to save whatever that is, $500,000 is just due, whatever, per month, or that's not right. Like to say $100,000 per month to hit the $1 million per year, et cetera, daily. So I take those big things and chunk them down into actionable. And that's usually where people start to get in this, like, whoa, like for me to actually get those big dream life things, I've got to do quite a bit per day, per week, per month to get them. If you set the goal big enough. Right? And that might be, I've got to make X amount of sales calls to be able to make this amount of money, to be able to save this amount of money. So that's how I would start, Jeff, is like the vision and then bringing them down into clear goals. And then once you have the goals, you can start to dictate what actions to take to get those goals. And how I do that is just modeling success. I think you walk the pavement path most of the time. So like, hey, if I've got to be able, for me, for example, I was making 80 grand a year coaching golf in person, very burnt out, felt like I was kind of tapped out. I wrote down this dream life vision. My goal was to be able to live my dream life with complete financial freedom in 10 years. So let's say when I first started this, I had under $1,000 to my name. I'm making 80 grand a year. And then I say, I want to live my dream life with complete financial freedom, meaning like my investments pay for my lifestyle. So when I wrote that list down, I told you about, I did the math on it. Hey, like what would it cost to have a place in Florida, Range Rover, blah, blah, blah. And the math on that was like 20 grand a month, which on one hand, 20 grand a month might as well have been like $1 billion to me at that time. It was so like far away. But on the other hand, I was kind of like, all right, like it's not $1 million a month, like 20K a month might be something. And so I let myself think like, okay, if I could do that, how would I do it? And then, okay, how would I do it? Like, is there anyone who currently does this? Like, is there anyone in the world who does this? Yeah, of course, yes. Is there anyone in my industry who does it or has done it? Okay, yes. How did they do it? Right? Like, what steps did they take? Not where they're at currently, but how did they get where they are? So you have vision, goals, tactics. And I think the tactics, you model success path along the way. So when I did my little math, I figured out I needed to make about $1.2 million every year for 10 years to be able to get to my goal that I wanted to have invested in that 10-year mark. So I had to go from 80 grand a year to 1.2. Like, how to freaking, is that going to happen? And so I looked and I thought, okay, who makes 1.2 million a year? Okay, lots of people, right? What about people who coach a sport or like are in the golf space? And I found like 2 or 3 people who are making that. Well, how do they do that? They've got an online membership site and they run in-person events, golf schools. All I was doing was one-on-one coaching. So I saw very clearly, once I had a clear vision and did the math, there's no way I could keep doing what I'm doing and make 1.2. Mathematically impossible. So the vision pulled me into new tactics. It made me do the online membership site. It made me do the golf schools, right? That's why I think that vision part's got to come first. The tactics come as a byproduct. So I said, okay, the only way I can make that amount of money is a membership site. Well, how am I going to get people to sign up for a membership site? I need to build an audience. I need more people to know who I am. How do I do that? Well, at that time, YouTube, right? YouTube was the main thing. And so that's like the reason we started YouTube and the reason we started our membership site, cogornogolf.com, was all based around me hitting a bigger goal. And so I would kind of run someone through a similar exercise like that.
That's very interesting. Yeah,
that's right. You said something very interesting to me, and I just want to reemphasize it because I know a lot of times people have a tendency to get overwhelmed, and what you just described is very overwhelming to think through all that stuff, right? But what you said is you break it down into manageable things, like what are you going to do today? What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do next week, next month, right? And I think we need to focus on that with anything that we do from a goal setting standpoint. It's like sometimes you can't even get your arms around it because it's so big, and so what happens is you get into this. What's the word I'm looking for? Procrastination is the word I'm looking for. You procrastinate. I'll just figure it out tomorrow. Versus if you can start, and I tell people like when they have so many tasks and they get overwhelmed with the task, start knocking off, start hitting singles, start taking the little ones, right? And just start knocking those off. And all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, wait, this is starting to come together. That's kind of cool. I really enjoy that. And you can start to see how the vision's actually going to work and get you to your goal. So I think that's a very valid point. I just wanted to reemphasize that because I thought it was pretty amazing when you mentioned that, because I think that that's one of the things that stops people from achieving their goals is they just get too overwhelmed and they don't know how to even go about it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And certainly I felt that, when I first saw that figure on that number, and it just felt so far away. And like, how the heck do you eat the elephant one bite at a time sort of deal? And for most things, I think either Jeff, you can chunk them down into something that's small enough that is manageable, like a year goal into a month, into a week, into a day, into an hour, into a moment, starts to feel a little bit easier. Or the other thing sometimes is giving yourself enough time, like expanding the time horizon to get the goal potentially. Like we talk a lot about shrinking the time horizon to get goals. And I think justifiably so, to get, to take action and set bigger goals. But there's something for me, Jeff, that works really well with like a 10-year goal or a 20-year goal, like something that's so far away that versus if you said to me, hey, you got to be able to save $4 million in the next 90 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know like how to move from there.
Yeah.
But if you're like 20 years or 10 years or something, that feels a little more doable as well. So yeah, love the chunking down. And I think having the correct time horizon on the goal is an interesting one too.
Yeah. And as experience, as you gain more experience with that, I think you also are clear about what that time frame really looks like. You know what I mean? For people that you're actually coaching and such. So it's interesting. It's a great concept.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Hey, Eric, we got to kind of wind things up, but man, it's always amazing to me how fast time goes when we do these. It's,
Yeah.
we get caught up in these conversations and it went great. But thank you for your insights. Thank you for what you're doing. It's just something, I mean, for people to kind of have those visions and then roll into goals and to teach business owners to do that, it's just amazing because we can get caught up in just the day to day. I mean, Pull the Chute is named that way because we want people to take a breath, feel in control, see where they're at and see where they want to go. And that's kind of what you're talking about. It's like, let's just take a daily breath of, hey, what's our vision? Where do we want to go? And then we kind of talk about how we're going to get there. But I love the vision side of things. I think that's great. And I think we need to, as business owners, as individuals, as people, we need to kind of do that more throughout the thing. So again, well, thanks for being on the show, Eric. We really appreciate that. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. We're very in line. That was fun. Sorry, longer answers on those topics, but
that's great.
We love it.
Yeah, so I would say two things there, Jeff. One, Eric Cogorno Golf is our YouTube golf channel. That's where you could go to see like our actual tactics. If people do social media, how we do thumbnails, titles, intro videos, call to actions, all that stuff. That's like where we do that. And then we've got a new personal development channel called Lessons I've Learned. It's Lessons I've Learned with Eric Cogorno. That's more stuff like this if they're into that.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Good luck in the new year. Hopefully this new thing kind of takes off for you. We're excited about that. Jan and I are big. We realize that there is a huge gap in leadership and just all the pieces that go about it. And that's one of the things that you're bringing to the table is one of those pieces. So our mission in 2025 is to help people become better leaders and kind of close that gap. And so that's what we're trying to do. And that's why this podcast is so important to us. And we really appreciate all the things that you're doing to help us do that. So thanks again. To all our listeners, we, as always, are thankful for you and your support. And as we are rolling into this new year, by the time this comes out, it'll probably be a little farther into the new year. But continue to keep your visions going, keep your goals going, and let's kind of hit some of those goals in 2025 that you've been procrastinating on. So again, if you have any questions, any concerns, thoughts, need some help, reach out to Jana or I. You know how to get a hold of us. And we'll be there to help you out. So until the next time, stay safe and be healthy.